Next, we have Peter Diamandis, who's the chair and CEO of the XPrize Foundation. Peter, thanks.
It's a pleasure to be here. Congrats to Tyler and Susan and Bruce and the team for putting this together. It's a great event. I'm going to speak about two subjects near and dear to my heart. Mega X Prizes that we're calling sort of what are the ultimate challenges to propose to humanity, and then really what you see before you, the 9-year-old child who wants to go and explore space and fulfill what Star Trek and Star Wars have all shown us, and how part of that at least might get us forward. My fundamental philosophy in life is the best way to predict the future is create it yourself. And I believe that. I believe that the billions of individuals, the intelligence we're unleashing can make almost anything happen that's unrestricted by the laws of physics, at least as we know them. Many of you know the story of at least my inspiration around the Lindbergh competition. This fellow, Raymond Ortega, puts up this $25,000 prize in 1919 for something that is considered impossible. And we humans know a lot about what is impossible until it becomes possible. And in 1927, there were 9 different teams that spent $400,000 to win this $25,000 prize. The most unlikely of them all, Charles Lindbergh, takes off on May 20th of 1927. The day before, the New York Times publishes an editorial that says, "Stop! Don't do this. You're going to kill yourself and set back aviation a decade." Well, he makes the trip against all odds, and we still know his name today. And what was so critical to me in reading that book was not the technology, not what happened when he flew his airplane, but what happened afterwards. Within 18 months of Lindbergh's flight, the number of passengers in the U.S. went from 6,000 to 180,000, a 30-fold increase. It wasn't like flying got easier. It's something happened in the human mind, a bit flipped. And what our belief of what was possible Okay. So what we believed was possible all of a sudden changed, and the world changed around it. Number of airplanes tripled, number of pilots quadrupled. So in reading that book, for me, I've always wanted to fly into space, and I gave up on the government getting us there. And so in reading this book, the idea of the X Prize came to mind. A $10 million purse was enough to inspire the mavericks, the thinkers, without having the large aerospace contractors even turn their head a micron. We wanted $10 million as the cash prize, privately funded. A 3-person spaceship meant that after the flight, you could go into commercial practice with a pilot and 2 paying passengers, or an autopilot and 3 paying passengers who were very brave. 100 kilometers altitude and twice in 2 weeks. So those were the rules. We had 26 teams from 7 countries who spent $100 million. Now, these were the people who in their minds believed it was possible, even though everyone said it was impossible. The winner was Burt Rutan with Spaceship One, funded by Paul Allen. And for me, what was amazing is that this vehicle is now hanging in the Air and Space Museum right next to the Spirit of St. Louis, above the Apollo 11 capsule. Thank you. And we changed the paradigm that space was only something that governments could do. And that, from the center core of what we try and do at the X Prize Foundation, is to make that happen. So on the day that the X Prize was won, a good friend of mine here, Keith Powers, working with some friends at Google, arranged to have this Google Doodle changed, and Spaceship One over the logo almost took down our, I don't know why the fonts are off, but almost took down our website. We grew the board, adding Larry Page and Ray Kurzweil, Elon Musk, Craig Venter, Dean Kamen, Ratan Tata, and really focused as an organization at trying to identify what are the world's grand challenges and where can we put up prizes that change the way people think about what is possible. We learned that prizes they're very efficient. You only pay the person when they do it. You don't pay someone for a good idea or a second place or whatever. And they're highly leveraged. We had $2.5 million from St. Louis, that attracted $10 million from the Ansari family, that drove $100 million in team expenditures, and there's arguably been over $1 billion spent in that personal spaceflight industry since the Ansari XPrize was won. We've organized ourselves since into 4 prize groups: energy and the environment, life sciences, exploration, education, and global development. And we have launched 3 prizes. One is the $10 million Archon XPrize for genomics. All you have to do is sequence 100 human genomes in 10 days. The $30 million Google Lunar XPrize: build a robot, land it on the surface of the moon, take a bunch of photos and videos. We call them mooncast, row 500 meters, take another mooncast. And then the Progressive Automotive XPrize for a new generation of cars that are super efficient, get over 100 miles per gallon, are fast, affordable, sexy, and cars that we want to drive. How do we choose these prizes? We have a group of our trustees and a group we call our Vision Circle, our largest donors, who are the folks that get together and we debate twice a year. Should we be looking at the oceans, looking at the asteroids, tuberculosis, cancer? What is it that we should do? And our goal is to roll out 2 or 3 X prizes per year. What makes a good X prize? We're not looking for some place that the efficiency of capitalism and the markets are in place. We're looking for places where there's a fundamental market failure, where people believe something is impossible, there are unions in place, those sorts of things. Our goal right now is probably launching about 10 X prizes over the next 4 to 5 years, probably worth on the order of $300 million, driving about $3 to $5 billion in team expenditures. This is our success scenario: addressing the world's grand challenges and reinventing philanthropy. Today, philanthropy is a very inefficient process. My goal is to say that about 10% of all philanthropy should be in the form of prizes. It's about $300 billion a year, or $30 billion of prizes. Imagine if we had that. That would be a lot of fun. So looking forward at the Mega X Prizes, you've seen this slide from Ray's book, the notion that as humans, we are slowly picking up how fast we incorporate new technologies. We fundamentally are so resistant, maybe not you, but most people are resistant to new technologies being put in place. And there's something that's changing. These are the 2 key elements, as far as I'm concerned, that we have to look at. We all think about the fact that information technology is exponentially growing, but there's something else that's exponentially growing, which is the amount of wealth in the hands of single individuals. And when you combine that 2 elements, that you have people who are willing to take huge risks, because governments and large corporations are not risk takers. In fact, I think we're killing ourselves, in the United States at least, by how risk adverse we have gotten. And so it really is going to be on the hands of single individuals who are able to, like Paul Allen and Burt Rutan, with a small team of 20 people, build something that only a nation could have done before. So that's the magical part. The wealth and the technology in individuals' hands, it's extraordinarily dangerous, but it also has the potential to literally make anything happen that we can imagine. Just some thoughts for me. I believe that there will be $100 million and billion-dollar prizes over the next decades ahead. Humans to orbit for under 100,000. First private humans on Mars. I think it's going to be a one-way mission. That's the right way to go to Mars. Finding extrasolar planets that are Earth-like. Point-to-point transport, which is very hard. New York to Paris. Mapping 100% of the ocean floor. At least doubling the human lifespan, if not further. First brain transplants, downloading the human brain, a 10x brain-to-brain communication, real-time collective consciousness. So I would love your thoughts on where we should be focusing X prizes. There's lots of passion and lots of capital out there that can fund these large purses. So let me tell you a little bit about space and why I think it's so critical for humanity in the future. We are driven by 3 fundamental forces to do risky things. The first is fear. The Apollo program was fundamentally fear. We had lost Sputnik, we had lost Gagarin. We were going to show the Soviets that we could do it, and we did. We went in 1961 from never having put a person in orbit to saying we're going to go to the moon. The average age of the engineers who built the Apollo program, 26. They did it because no one told them what could not be done. They had to design every single component of it. The same average age of the engineers who built the dot-com revolution. If you want a group of people who are at the peak of their performance, Those of you who are managers, next time someone in their mid-20s comes along with a crazy idea, listen to them. This is an average asteroid. This is what a large average asteroid can do. Another driver of fear. I had the pleasure, some of you might know, to fly this man, the world's expert in gravity, into zero gravity last year, Stephen Hawking. Here he is flying in our zero-G airplane. We flew an apple in homage to Sir Isaac Newton on that airplane because Dr. Hawking holds the same chair at Cambridge University as he does. It was a great moment, it really was. Everybody told me I was crazy to do it, and we did it anyway. But this was the reason that he flew. I want to read this. It said, "Life on Earth is at an ever-increasing risk of being wiped out by a disaster, such as a sudden global warming, nuclear war, genetically engineered virus. I think the human race doesn't have a future if it doesn't go into space." And many of you have thought about this. Another friend, Elon Musk, calls it backing up the biosphere. I do think that's a critical part of what we do. The second major driver is curiosity of why we go and do things and why we'd explore space. Is there fundamentally life out there? You can actually easily measure the ratio of fear to curiosity in how it drives us. It's the ratio of the defense budget to the science budget, unfortunately. And the third major driver of opening up space is wealth. That same average asteroid of a nickel-iron type with high and platinum group metal markets will make the first trillionaires on this planet. About $20 trillion worth of platinum group metal markets. So for me, in opening up space, the question has been how to make it happen. And it's how do you create a large enough market that drives us in the same way we went from room-sized computers to the PC. Today, there is probably about 12 commercial launches of satellites per year. There's probably about 12 commercial launch companies. That's one customer per company per year. That's not a marketplace. So the notion was, can we create another market? I like to think of people as self-loading carbon payloads that come with their own money. They're easy and fun to make. And the other major marketplace is, someone a little delayed laugh there, but you'll get it eventually, don't worry, is the entertainment marketplace. So I've had the honor of starting a few companies in the space travel business, Zero-G and co-founding Space Adventures. We send people to orbit on the Soyuz. Instead of going to socialist US, we went to capitalist Russia, where we can buy a vehicle, and we can fly folks to orbit on the Soyuz. And this is the $100 billion hotel that we fly them to, the International Space Station. We had flown until last week 5 customers, 5 astronauts, 5 private astronauts, from Dennis Tito in the upper left to Charles Simone in the bottom right. And we just flew our 6th customer, a very good friend of mine, Richard Garriott. Richard is the first second-generation astronaut. He just landed, 3 days ago. And he had an amazing ride on a very safe Soyuz return. We've announced our 7th customer, Charles Simone. Many of you know him as the inventor of Word and Excel, who was our 5th customer. He loved it so much he's flying again. So which doubles our market automatically, by the way. Now, what's interesting is, will space ever get cheaper? Everything we hold of value on Earth, metals, minerals, energy, real estate, are in near infinite quantities in space. It is fundamentally the future. The same way we Americans thought about Alaska in the 1850s as a vast, resource-laden, faraway land. When we built the roads and the railroads and the airports to get there, all of a sudden Alaska became someplace we take our honeymoons. So it's the cost of getting to space which is the difficult part. Just looking at this, if you do the energy calculations, the shuttle costs about $100 million a person. It's a generous estimate of what it costs to fly someone into space. About $1 billion a flight. They fly 7 people on a shuttle. If you do the calculation of how much energy it takes to put you and your spacesuit into orbit, it's MGH, for a couple hundred kilograms, 1/2 mv². You can figure it out, about 6.6 gigajoules. If you buy it at 7 cents a kilowatt hour, the cost for putting you and your spacesuit into orbit is about $128. So the price improvement curve we have is about 6 orders of magnitude. And the reason we haven't made any improvement is there hasn't been a marketplace. So what we're working on right now to open up the space frontier is how can we actually create a marketplace and bring it back. Now, if I've learned anything from my friend Ray Kurzweil, it's understand if something is getting on the information technology curve. So my question was, are there any signs that space exploration and transportation is becoming an information technology? And there is one. My friend Harry and I were just at the XPrize Lunar Lander Challenges in New Mexico yesterday and this morning. And here you see the DCX vehicle built by McDonnell Douglas, well over 100 people in that team, on the order of hundreds of people, spent about $80 million and did less than 10 flights. The same vehicle that's been flying now by Armadillo, which has a very similar capability, built by less than 10 people for under $1 million with over 100 flights. I mean, that's the potential. And you know, the thing that really gives me great inspiration is the guy who built this and designed it is John Carmack, the video game designer. So here you have somebody who's a video game designer coming into the space world, which is exactly what we love to try and inspire. For me, the final slide here is the notion that the most critical tool for solving any challenges is the committed and passionate human mind, that anything is possible. I'll close with just a quick point. I know that there's been some rumors out there about the formation of a Singularity University. I thought I'd just address it very briefly. I had the honor with 2 close colleagues to have established 20 years ago, something called the International Space University, which is one of the top graduate and postgraduate institutions for the study of space. And the rumor is true. There is something coming together, but that's all I can say right now. I thank you for your time. I would love to take a few questions if I could.
2 questions.
2 questions.
Yeah.
Susan. Are there 2 questions? One in the back, please.
Yeah, I was here last year, and there was a mention of an education XPrize, and it wasn't formal, but it fit a lot of your criteria. So I was interested in the status of that.
So education global development is one of the areas we're focused on, and we are looking for the creation of an education XPrize. People want something. Now the question is how you define something that is clearly objective and measurable, and the intersection of audacity, audacious and achievable. So we have some ideas. We're thinking about it. We're not going to launch a prize until we're sure it will make a fundamental difference and drive a new population of people into the field. But we do desire such a prize. I'd be open to folks' ideas. Please.
In the last 6 months, there's been about 3 major conceptual developments in the concepts of solar power satellites. It would be very nice to talk about doing a XPrize along those lines, although in truth, one of the developments was a way to fund all $350 billion of the project without using a nickel of federal money.
So I would love solar power satellites to be real and true and successful. I lived this movie before. In 1991, I was involved in one of the big LEO constellations. Okay, so the notion was that you spend a huge amount of money to launch a low Earth orbit satellite system that provides telephony or broadband. And what happened over the span of that large capital investment and the decade of time, Ray's exponential curves took over and brought the microcell for a cellular phone down to under $100,000, and they spread like kudzu. And basically, you now have cell phones every place on the planet. So the question is, with the same investment that would be, literally tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars to develop solar power satellites, would that investment really drive lower cost solar power satellites or solar power derived systems on the ground? And I think that probably the answer would be yes, but that's not a subject for debate right now. I want to make sure no one's calling me. Was there a third question? Yes.
How do you relate what you're doing with open source research And do you need millions of dollars in prizes to get to this kind of results? And can it spread?
Great question. So, XPrize Foundation is about open source problem solving. It's a marketplace for major problems and problem solvers. The money is not the driver. The money is something that credentials it and puts it on the front page of the newspapers. It's the mechanism by which people use an excuse. So before the Ansari X Prize was there, lots of teams wanted to build rockets, but they went out for money and people said, you're crazy. Once the prize was there, it gave people an excuse to fund their teams. So it's not about the cash, it's about the challenge. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.